And there we are. Hey there, everybody. Welcome. As the description says, guess what? We are getting ready to record our 78th episode. Can you believe it? It's here. It's happening right now of the Hidden Entrepreneur Show. I don't do it alone. You know that. I can't be more excited. Helping me today is our guest right there on the screen. It's Laura Wallace. How's it going, Laura?
Hey, great. How are you?
Are you there?
I am.
There you are. I hear you.
Awesome. I hear you, so we're in good shape.
Oh, hang on one second. There we go. Now I got all my sound squared away. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
And I can hear you. You know what it is? Exactly. We can hear each other, and good to see everybody joining in. Like the description says, we're getting ready to record a fantastic episode of the Hidden Entrepreneur Show. Laura Wallace right there. And what's interesting is I just got these new headphones. I used to use earbuds, but I saw these like you, Laura, I used to use those. And I always resisted these. And I saw them on the shelf, and for whatever reason, they were calling my name then. Isn't that always the way it works? When you're ready, you're ready. And then it just got my attention. And I'm like, I'm going to try them. So here I am trying them. All right. Are we ready?
I'm ready if you are.
All right. We're going to hit record and begin the show. Thank you for guys joining us. If you have thoughts, questions, or comments, do put them there and we'll address them. This is going to be great. Here we go. Hey there, guys. Thanks for joining us and tuning in. You're tuned right into the Hidden Entrepreneur Show. I am your host, Josh Cary. Our guest today is here to get you out of your head and into your passion. She is a self-proclaimed inspiration junkie, thrill seeker, and a fellow entrepreneur. She's the owner and creative director of Works, a graphic design studio that helps you bring your big ideas to life through branding, website, and marketing campaigns. And get this, they exist solely to get others as pumped about your brand as you are. How cool is that? Now, she started this business 11 years ago when she quit her job while 6 months pregnant with her son. Can't believe that. I want to hear all about that. It's Laura Wallace, and she's the host of the Gutsy Podcast, your weekly guide to getting out of your head and back to your goals as a passionate business rock star. Why? Because she knows that being an entrepreneur can be incredibly rewarding while also making you want to pull your hair out. Can you relate? I know I can. So happy to have you with us. It's Laura Wallace. How's it going, Laura?
Hey, fantastic. Thank you. How are you?
I'm so good. So there's so much here that I want to unravel and discuss because it seems like you get it. But I want to start with what's right behind you. Obviously, this is part of your brand, the word Gutsy. And it says, yeah, clearly. And it says you have Gutsy. What is that? What does all that mean?
So the framework behind Gutsy is, particularly as entrepreneurs, a lot of times you have thoughts and ideas, a passion, something that's burning inside you, something that wakes you up in the middle of the night. And there's 1,001 reasons to not do it.
There you go.
Fear, concern, perception. Fear can be unraveled into 1,000 different directions. But we really celebrate Gutsy, and it's when people have that inner passion and want to do something, and even though there's those 1,001 reasons to not do it, they persevere and do it anyway. That is Gutsy, and I celebrate that every day.
I got to tell you, I spent a lifetime in the non-gutsy, but what was so frustrating, and I know you can relate there, I knew every day that I was showing up, ignoring, resisting, turning my back on my power, my strength, my ability, what was going to be a gutsy yet correct move for me. Oh, I put that to bed every night. And you know what that does? It creates a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, and a lot of resistance.
Absolutely.
How did you find this path to like, why is it so meaningful to you to allow others to be gutsy and live their passion?
Well, I feel like I've been an entrepreneur for, I think, my whole life, but an active entrepreneur for the last 11 years.
Active, yeah.
Yeah, I remember being a little girl and, cutting out magazine ads because I liked the messaging and I liked how they played with the photos. So I knew early on that I had some sort of passion for marketing and design. But as I started my business, I started it from my couch by myself, no business background, no marketing, like other than my schooling, no like in the depths marketing training. Really didn't know anything, which was kind of worked to my advantage because I feel like if I had known a whole lot more, maybe I had not done it. But through the process of owning a business, I found out very quickly that there is this mental cycle that people go through. There are super high highs and extremely low lows, and then every emotion that you can think of in between those two, they happen. And I spent a long time feeling like I was the only one that felt like that. There must be something wrong with me. Yes. I must be nuts. Yes. Everyone else appears to have it all together. Meanwhile, I feel like I'm losing my mind over here. And then I started slowly talking about it. And I found out very quickly that that's actually the complete opposite. Everyone is feeling like this, right? Literally every single day, every entrepreneur has some swing of emotion. And the more I talked about it, the more I realized more people felt like that. And then, a series of events happened. And we realized that it just really comes down to gutsy. And I feel passionate about spreading that message because I live it every day. I know what they're going through. I can completely 110% relate to them. And, when you break it down, people just want to be seen and heard. So when we can relate to them on a level where we're literally living the same life that they are, just in a different capacity, magical things can happen.
Laura, I'm getting the chills because you're saying so much that I'm like, yes, preach it. I get it. I've been there. First of all, I'm tucking away for a minute the fact that, and we'll get to this in a bit, the fact that you started your business when you had no business skills, incredible, because I know so many will think that and say, oh, well, that by definition means that I couldn't or shouldn't do it. But right. It's plowing through and yet taking that step and taking that just one next action and seeing what comes of it. And I also love how you said the idea that we go through, yes, these ups and downs and everything in between. As an entrepreneur, we can all relate to that, right? And the thing about it is that we then feel we're the only ones. And I spent a lifetime feeling that, and then that turned into loneliness, despair, isolation. And you know what that does? That ain't a good feeling, to feel isolated.
It's not a great place to be.
You've been there.
Yes, more times than I care to admit.
Yeah. So just knowing that others are in the exact same boat and you have to sort of navigate to them and around that to embrace everything that's going on.
Absolutely.
I love that your LinkedIn profile, wonderful. There's one phrase that caught my attention. It says you are a risk-taking badass.
I'm glad you picked up on that. I hesitated to put it on there and I thought, you know what? This is who I am. So why the hell not?
Why did you hesitate putting it on there?
Well, it's different, and LinkedIn is seen as a very professional network. Well, I'm a professional, but that doesn't mean that I don't have colorful language and I can't be who I am.
There you go. So you're a risk-taking badass and you put it on there, and clearly you're going to attract the people that are into that and appreciate that. And you're going to detract those that are either turned off, but that's sort of the game, right? That's sort of the point.
Absolutely. If there's anything that I've learned through finding myself as an entrepreneur and who my voice is and who I stand for as my own brand, it is that you do attract what you put out. So why put on a front? Why, change language or tone or the way you dress, the way you interact with potential clients or when you're networking? Like, why wouldn't I, and I spent a long time doing this, but why wouldn't I give you exactly who I am with our first interaction? Because
imagine that. Yeah.
Great first impressions are making lasting ones. And what people don't realize is by putting on a front, it's not just that one occasion. Now, if you start a relationship with that person in any type of capacity, that's kind of their baseline. That's what they're expecting from you. And when you go and you change things and you start being, quote unquote, who you truly are, people start to get kind of weird. And, it just creates this really exhausting dynamic between you and anybody else that you come in contact with. So by putting that out there, you very quickly know a whole lot about me.
Yeah. Exhausting is exactly right. I've used that word to sort of sum up the lifestyle that I left behind, because it is exhausting to try to keep up that persona. And in my situation, it was, driven from a lot of insecurity, a lot of desperation, just trying to seek the approval of others and show up as the person that I thought they expected me to be, which was really perpetuating the small story I had about myself in my head. And then you wind up attracting all those people who are none too eager to perpetuate that story for you. And it is exhausting.
Amen to that.
Yeah. What was the business before you started Works, WORX?
Yes.
11 years ago, you were pregnant with your son. What a gutsy move. I guess that's all part of it, right? Yeah, of course it's a gutsy move. That's how you got to this point. What was the role and position career you were in right before then?
So before then, it was actually my first job out of college, and I worked at the Yellow Pages designing.
I'm sorry, I really couldn't hear you. It sounded like you said the Yellow Pages.
I know, it's kind of archaic at this point.
I think I have to teach my kids when they get older about this book that exists.
Yeah, they'll be in museums at some point. Look at this archaic piece of literature. I designed Yellow Page ads, which was just as exciting as it sounds.
Now, did you design them for, were you working for Yellow Pages that had a client that was going to advertise, but they needed somebody in-house to?
Yeah. So basically the sales reps would go out and they would have accounts. We would often create things called spec ads where they were trying to pitch ads for different businesses. So I was often the person behind the scenes, creating these ads for people that I never met based on the information that I was given. We worked with 4 colors. It got real crazy: black, red, yellow, and blue. Well, that's it. And every once in a while, someone would get real crazy and take out a full color ad, and that felt like Christmas.
A full color ad in the Yellow Pages. And then you were the one that they would say, Laura, here are the specs, design this ad for the new advertiser.
One of them. Yeah.
Wow. So you have a creative background. You're
I do.
A designer. Yeah.
I am. I'm a graphic designer by nature. I have a bachelor's degree in graphic design. So art and creativity has always been part of my life.
And what happened? You just got bored or fed up, or how did this come to an end, the designing Yellow Page ads?
Well, a series of events, a couple of different things. I was getting really kind of antsy as far as, like I said, I was creating ads for people that I never met. And I very quickly found that I wanted to know about these people and their story, not just what the sales rep was telling me. Hey, put these 4 bullet points and their phone number in the ad. I wanted to know more about the farm that I was creating the ad for. I wanted to know why the mechanic started his shop. I was more interested in the story behind the business and, why they were there in the first place versus just being, I very quickly turned into a production artist, which was quantity over quality. And I was just cranking stuff out. Me and the team that I was working with, we were just cranking things out. And I felt like, through my schooling, I was trained to have purpose and meaning and a story behind the brand and the design. And I was, shifted into a role where that kind of took the back burner. So that was one of the things. And then when I got pregnant, when my husband and I decided to start a family, I knew that I wanted more for our family. I wanted
Oh, you did?
crazy concept. I know.
Not many people do.
Yeah. I wanted to be there with our son as he was taking all of his first milestones, and I wanted to be there to get him on and off the bus. And, I wanted to be able to raise him, and I felt like I had an opportunity to be able to do that. I know not a lot of people do. So I feel very fortunate and blessed that I was able to do that. And then when, showing my ambition, my Gutsy wasn't always necessarily celebrated in the way that other people saw what my role should be. So all of those things combined and connected, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna get out of here. I got stuff to do.
Sorry, it's you know what? I see the mouth moving, but I got somewhere to be.
Right. I got stuff to do. I'm going to shift here. So
that's fantastic. We're going to catch up to all this and see how all that plays out by being Gutsy. But I want to go back to the very beginning, and I want to learn about Laura Wallace and what shaped you and how you got here today. Take us back to the beginning, if you would. What was life like growing up for a young Laura Wallace?
So my childhood, came with its own set of challenges and obstacles. I have 3 siblings. If I go way back early on, my parents were super young when they had me. They were 15 and 16 years old, so just babies of their own.
Wow.
So I grew up in a very young household with grandparents around me. And things, things are not always fairy tale land. My dad left when I was 2. And then my mom was left to raise me with my great grandmother. And I just feel like, we just kind of had a rough start to my journey in this life. And I learned a lot of really great things from my mom. But I also grew up very, very quickly. Lots of responsibilities. I helped to raise my siblings, which I'm very close with now. And, it was challenging. We didn't have a lot of money, so we grew up on a lot of, turkey meals and that come in those little like cellophane bags that you put in the microwave and microwave pizzas. And, I think that people do the best with the resources that they have. And I also learned that people can only love you in the capacity that they know how to love themselves.
Ooh. That's incredible. Let's talk about that for a little. So whether it was your mother or others around you, people can only love you to the capacity in which they can love themselves.
Yes. So, everyone has their own story, right? And everyone has their own upbringing and their own surroundings and their own circumstances. And sometimes, unfortunately, people are not loved, or they're not paid attention to, or they're not given that thing that they need from within them.
Been there. Yeah.
So, it was challenging. I had some pretty challenging situations and conversations, and a lot of variables that I think that probably could have made me bitter and angry as an adult. But everything is also a choice. So while people can only love in that capacity, you also have the opportunity to change that story as well. And I chose to change the story.
At what age were you able to really connect all that and take action on that?
That was a series. that was a lot of kind of a lifetime of learning in its own.
Okay.
Honestly, not until I had my son did my mindset start to shift. Because when I had my son, I learned what love really was.
Oh my gosh. Yes, same exact. I have a 5-year-old daughter, a 3-year-old son that I credit totally to being the mirror for showing me, okay, this is the way to live. This is the way to experience. This is the way to be. And I didn't want to show up in that world for them kicking and screaming and yelling and misery and anger, which I was. And I'm like,
yes.
okay, this has to stop. You guys are like extraordinarily perfect, and you're showing me how to experience the world and how to be through your range of perfect, beautiful emotions. And I then have to take an honest look in, and then make a series of one by one habit changes, replacing the bad with a little bit of a better choice. Everything is a choice, as you said. And
Yes.
slowly but surely, here we are. And
Yeah, that's almost verbatim what happened with me, you know, because when I saw him and held him for the first time, you know, that moment a lot of people talk about, but truly for me, it made me weep. It gave me a lot of love, but it also made me very angry.
Go ahead.
I realized what a parent's love could feel like. And then I became angry because I didn't know why I wasn't worthy of receiving that myself. Now, fast forward, I am 110% worth being loved. I've worked a lot through that.
We've gotten there.
We've gotten there. But my son taught me love. My son taught me what just raw, beautiful relationships could be like. My husband and I have a fantastic relationship, so certainly there's a lot of love there. But from a parent-child perspective, he's the one that started to snowball that healing for me.
So going back to your upbringing, I know you said before that this created some abandonment issues and some issues of self-worth and self-love. Did that put the drive into you to sort of foreshadow the Gutsy movement? Is that how it started being connected?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, when I look back, you know, when you're living some of those moments, you know, you have a lot of emotions, a lot of anger, a lot of whys. You ask yourself why a whole lot. And you live inside your mental space a whole lot, which is not always the best place to be. But looking back, I can see how those things shaped who I am today. And I don't think that without all of those things that occurred, that I would have had the gutsy or the drive or the purpose to do what I do now.
Is there an element of boldness to a gutsy action?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, gutsy is, you know, is the term that we use, but it's backed by 1,000 other descriptions as well. Bold, most certainly being one of them. You have to be, you know, it's hard to change your life. It's hard to get out of a pattern. It's hard to go against the grain when everyone's expecting you to do one thing. And all of those decisions are bold decisions. And then collectively, it's the celebration of the gutsy that defines what you are.
I love it. And like I keep saying, I totally relate to that. Spent a lifetime turning my back on that until I'm like, okay, you know what? It's time, especially because of the children who came about and showed me the way. And it's like, yeah, we're going to do this. We're going to make a gutsy move. I didn't have that phrase, but there it is. Every bit of it.
There it is.
You also talk about vulnerability. How does this play into things?
So vulnerability is probably one of the most uncomfortable emotions that humans experience, because when you put yourself out there, you set yourself up for critiques, good, bad, in between. You set yourself up for other people's opinions, good, bad, or in between, and a whole lot of other things that kind of accompany it. Vulnerability to me is extremely important because, you know, while we're running businesses, and some of us have employees and we all have clients and customers, at the end of the day, we're all humans. And humans have emotions and humans have feelings and desires and drives and passions. So by being vulnerable, to me, it's an opportunity to inspire someone else to be vulnerable as well, or to know that their vulnerability doesn't necessarily define who they are, or you know, it doesn't write their entire story. You know, it's just a part of who they are at that current time in their life.
Yeah. And you, I know the way you put it is that most people would rather hide under blankets than share their feelings.
Oh yeah. Feelings are hard.
The feels.
The feels,
Yeah.
it's easy to have the feels and box them and contain them. That's kind of the easy route. Doesn't mean that it's easy, but it's easier to kind of box things up and, kind of tuck them in the closet or underneath the covers. I have certainly spent my fair share of days and hours tucked away as well. But you have to get to a point where, you accept that is what you're going to do and how you're going to feel, or you're going to break loose and you're going to allow some of those things out. And sometimes that's constructively with professionals like therapists or coaches. Sometimes that's with trusted friends. Sometimes it ends up in a business platform. I share a lot of vulnerable things on our podcast about my business journey and the things that I've gone through, because there's power in knowledge and there's inspiration in stories, and knowing that you're not the only person that looks, feels, or acts the way that you do.
There's power and knowledge, and there's inspiration and stories, and it helps you feel that you're not the only one going through it, which ties back to that earlier theme of when we are on our path in our day as an entrepreneur, we feel the highest of the highs, the lowest of the lows, everything in between. And we tell ourselves we're the only ones going through this. And that creates that separation, that isolation. We've all been there. Absolutely crazy. And I always tucked my feelings aside because, I always perpetuated a very, what was the story of my childhood, that I was incapable, unvalued, and nobody cared in any regard. So my feelings stayed internal because I'm like, well, why am I going to express them? Nobody cares. And that, went through adulthood, and it's not good.
No, that stuff sticks around with you. Sometimes those childhood things that I experienced and those emotions that, kind of lingered around sometimes show up in my business, which is really challenging. But one of the most important parts about it is now I have identified it. So that's one of the most important things by being vulnerable, right? You start to release some of those very, very tightly woven emotions, and you allow them to breathe a little bit. And when you're more aware of them, then you can see how they're showing up for you, which then gives you an opportunity to change that story. But when it's all tucked away and you don't want to face it, or you don't want to deal with it, it's always kind of this burden that comes along with you, and you can't grow as an entrepreneur if you're not willing to grow as a human.
Whoa. Quotable right there. Seriously. And I love the idea that you have to be self-aware. That's what you're saying. And that's what it's about. I've realized in the past few years just how needed and necessary that aspect of life is. You have to become self-aware. First, you have to know what that means and what it looks like. And then the more self-aware you can become, the better things are, because you could anticipate reactions and emotions creeping up and see things for what they are, not how you're telling yourself.
Right.
You do any sort of meditation or journaling or rituals like that to help you in your day?
I try. I'm not the best at keeping a routine, but I do meditation. I know that one of my spots to rejuvenate myself is to be outside. So I'm a huge proponent of being out, sometimes just being quiet with myself, not really doing anything other than just being alone with myself.
It also comes down to, as you say, get comfortable being uncomfortable. And I love this so much because sometimes we'll shy away from uncomfortability for the comfort of pain, which is only comfortable because it's familiar.
True
so
story.
It's painful, but it's comfortable because we know that pain, we know what to expect. So we resist the perhaps better choice of uncomfortability in the moment to work through that, to feel it, to accept it, to move through it. But we'll say, nah, I'm going to be over here, uncomfortably pained.
Yeah, I think you hit the nail on the head. The pain is familiar, right? And when you change things, there's a level of uncertainty, unknown. You have to learn something new. And sometimes this is an obstacle that you're going through. Sometimes this is dealing with outdated processes, within the business that you're just willing to deal with because you're familiar with it, but it's going to take time to learn something new. Anytime you make change, it's sometimes by default easier to go back to what you're familiar with, even if it's taking mental capacity. Like those things take time away from you, even though they're familiar and they're painful. You're willing to deal with it because you already know what they are.
Yeah. So you going back to your Yellow Pages days, you said goodbye. You were 6 months pregnant to start your own graphic design business. Was it all rosy and wonderful from day one?
No.
It's a loaded question.
No. And I think if anyone says that it was, that they are not being vulnerable enough. When I started Works, I had no business background. I didn't know, how to effectively, network with people or how to get out of my comfort zone. Prior to that, I had been in an office working, but I knew that I had more to give. So I was willing to take the risk to figure it out. So, every day was a new process. Every day was learning something new. And just as soon as I learned what I felt like I needed to learn, there was a new monkey wrench and I had to figure that out too. And honestly, that's true today as well. Like I don't have all the business answers. I don't know a lot of things, but you have to be willing to learn to be able to grow.
And that's the magnificent thing you just said. First of all, the admission of, I don't know, I don't have all the answers, but I don't need all the answers right now. I do not need all the answers. I just need to know what that next action is and be able to take it and then either figure it out in real time or talk to somebody on my team or a connection that can help me figure it out. That's all it is. That's all successful people do. They don't master every single part of you. You have to know what's going on, right? But you have to just know that I got it. I can figure it out in real time. I can see what may happen. And if and when that point comes up, I'll figure it out. I'll research, I'll ask somebody, but it'll all work. Was there a time you said that you went bankrupt?
Yeah, that was fun times.
Yeah, good times.
2 years, well, no, let me take this back. I quit my job, started working from home. At that point, my husband was the moneymaker in our household. We were able, while things were tight, we were able to get by, meet our bills based off of his income, and then we were slowly building the business. But I remember very distinctively, I was sitting at my mother-in-law's kitchen table because I felt really isolated working at home by myself. I'm a creative person and I feed off of people's energy. So I got really bummed out being alone. So I was working at her house. I had taken my laptop down there and my husband walked in the door and it was 2:00 in the afternoon. And I thought, oh, he came home for a late lunch. And then I realized, wait a second, he works 45 minutes away. He wouldn't just pop back home. And also it's 2:00. So he's not here for lunch. And based on the look on his face, oh, no. I knew very quickly that something was terribly wrong, and he let me know that his job had let him go. So overnight, we went from his income and paying our bills to literally no income. Also, a baby about to be born 6 to 8 weeks later. So insurance, bye. Income, see ya. And we very quickly wondered how in the hell we were going to survive life. So, we picked up, it's called COBRA insurance. I don't know if you're familiar with that. It's basically supplemental insurance in between jobs that costs an arm and a leg. We kind of started this very, very uphill battle to keep our life moving forward. And after about 2 years of him in and out of jobs, he has a degree in architectural drafting and design. And that was 2007. So if you marry those two things together, not a super ideal time to be in the housing market.
I got that. Yeah.
So, he was in and out of jobs. A lot of places were laying off and just not hiring. And after about 2 years, we just financially couldn't do it anymore. So we went bankrupt. We filed bankruptcy.
Okay, before we get into that, so that afternoon, we're going to let that simmer on the stove for a few minutes, right? So then we went bankrupt. Okay, turn to simmer. So he comes home 2 p.m, and he tells you this. Certainly now the next few hours, how are you emotionally processing this? First of all, you're pregnant, let's not forget, which when we were pregnant, I knew that, okay, honey, just relax as much, like nothing stressful. Here you go. Okay, so now you're being a little poked and prodded and challenged by the powers. Yes.
Yeah, because at that point I was 8 months pregnant, which means I was
anytime
super hormonal, and quite miserable in my own skin. Those next few hours were challenging. We were afraid, we were angry, we were bitter, we were nervous. If you can think of the emotion, we most certainly were experiencing it. It was a lot of, how are we going to do this now? We're about to bring another human into this situation, and now we don't even know how we're going to take care of ourselves.
So how did you, giving birth the next month, I imagine, right? How did you, by that point, did you spend time just doing what needed to be done? How did you show up?
Yeah.
We
day by day, honestly. Yeah. I don't know that there was a secret sauce or a
plan,
strategy or a plan at that point. It was just, how are we going to do this? We went back and forth a lot on, I said, well, maybe I should just go back to work. That seems like the logical thing to do. My industry is fairly okay at this point. Yours clearly is not.
Right.
So,
and you're hanging on to the yellow pages at this point. You're like, well, they'll be around for a while.
Yeah, exactly. But my husband is a huge supporter of me and what I do. And he was like, if you go back to work, you're going to be miserable.
Burn the boats.
Yep, absolutely. So we just took it one day at a time, and we leaned on one another. I was helping him put resumes into other places, and we were just, let our family in and leaned on them, and just took it day by day.
So now, if I'm doing the math, you have a 12-year-old son?
He'll be 12 this year, yeah.
And how is he?
He's amazing.
Isn't he?
I mean, I'm a little biased because he's my human, but
why not?
But he's a beautiful soul. He's creative inside and out. He loves people from the depths of his heart. He's always the first one to chip in and help if he sees someone in need. He's often, things that he writes at school, he's often talking about helping other families. He writes and he draws and he sings, and he's a joy to be around.
It's amazing. I love hearing that. Totally relate. So you went bankrupt. We're going to go back to that pot now. Okay. You went bankrupt, and now you sort of have to pick up the pieces. And I know you said that part of all of these chain of events were in part because you were not listening to your gut, right? But in turn, just trying to not rock the boat and upset people. How detrimental is that, right? I get it.
Yeah, well, it was, one of the emotions that I went through was, okay, I made this choice. This is what I felt like the universe was calling me to do. And now I feel like I'm being punished.
Wow.
Looking back, I know that it was more just training.
There you go.
So lots of perspective, but in that moment, I was angry, and then I started to question myself. I started to question my gutsy right at that point, because I'm like, oh well, see, I make this choice and I go out on my own, but now it's like the universe is telling me that you shouldn't have done that.
Was that an incorrect assessment?
Absolutely.
What's the correct assessment?
The correct assessment is, by going through that, I learned things, very valuable things that I needed to know for later obstacles and challenges in my life. I learned a lot about myself during that time frame. I learned a lot about my husband in that time frame. We learned a lot about one another as a team and a duo. And honestly, I learned what I was capable of overcoming. because it felt like that was the end of our life, honestly. I mean, we spent many, many nights up very late crying, wondering how we were going to even just make ends meet. We wanted to give our son a better life than what we had when we were growing up. And it felt like we were never going to be able to overcome and get out of that. But again, perspective, here we are.
What is your relationship with the word failure?
So failure is a necessary evil. I've had a lot of different experiences with failure. And I've also learned a lot from failure. I used to think that failure was a definition. Is more of a journey and an opportunity to learn something for a future occasion.
It's a great sentiment all around. So the brand, The Hidden Entrepreneur, of course, is built on the fact that I was hiding in every regard, using fear as the excuse to remain stable there and, not move forward. Perhaps you had already mentioned this, but I want to frame it this way. Tell us about a time that scared the hell out of you.
I feel like I'm scared a lot, honestly, but that's kind of part of the process. A time that scared the hell out of me. So probably one of the first big moves that we made in the business was when we were starting to come out. We were on the other side of bankruptcy. Oh man, I have so many different times that I could talk about. One of the first big moves that we made in the business was renting a small space outside of the house.
Okay.
And that was a pretty terrifying situation because I ran the business out of the house, which meant our only overhead expenses were basically our home expenses.
Yeah.
Now this space ended up being kind of a smaller satellite space, and we didn't work out of the home a whole lot. We only went there, a couple hours a week. But that first contract that I was presented with of a commitment to pay a monthly fee to do something above and beyond what I was currently doing was pretty terrifying to me. And in the same respect, hiring your first employee was also one of the most nerve-wracking things I've ever done in my life.
But now going back to that contract for the space, that was before you committed. That was the end. This is the terms. What did you tell yourself that? Because clearly, I'm sorry, did you take that?
I did take it.
So what did you tell yourself while being scared that, what, this is the right move?
I rely a lot on gut instinct. I'm a very intuitive person.
Love it.
And I'm very intuitive when I enter spaces as well and when I'm around people. So when I walked in there, I could visualize me being in there. I could visualize doing more than what I was doing. And I could see myself. It made me, so I base fear a lot off of two different emotions of feeling like it's a brick or a butterfly. So when fear is present, if you get this very sinking, heavy, very low emotion, those are like bricks. And those are usually signs that this is not right. Stop, turn around, reroute. But if you get this kind of light, airy, higher fear emotion where you almost kind of feel like you're going to throw up a little bit, that is fear, but it's a sign to me that I'm in the right place at the right time and that it's a risk worth taking. So
and it's almost necessary to feel that good fear in order to move forward. You have to feel that in order to know that there's growth. And
completely agree. And being in that space, I had that light, airy, kind of vomity fear feeling. So it felt exciting to me. It didn't feel like it was daunting. Yeah, I questioned how we were going to do it. It's funny when I look back because the rent there was, wait for it, $115 a month. And at that point in my career and in my time, that was a substantial amount of money.
Yeah. So, hey, to you it was, and to others it is. And it depends where you are and how you receive that at that time. Wow.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I love that. Geez, that whole analogy of fear. I never realized that takes on those two two distinct feelings. One is a heavy burden fear, and the other is a light, airy. I've said that entrepreneurship is very much like butterflies in your stomach as often as possible. And the more often you could experience that, for me at least, I'm like, ooh, because I feel it daily. And I try to experience that several times, many times, just thinking about projects, talking to people, doing things, going places. Just that butterfly feeling is it.
Absolutely.
Looking back on a younger version of yourself, what advice would you now give that person?
Oh, she and I would sit down and have a lot of coffee together. I would be like, girl, pull up a stool. We need to talk.
I love that. I love that. Go ahead.
I think one of the most important things that I would tell the younger version of myself is that you do not need other people's approvals in order to shine your light. You don't have to dim your light to shine. You don't have to tiptoe around other people. People are going to have opinions no matter what you do. So you might as well do something that makes you feel like a rock star.
Laura, it's like you're reading the audio version of my book. I'm like, yes, there it is. There, same crap, right?
It is crap. It really is.
And that's why I say it deliberately. Go ahead.
Yeah, but when you're experiencing it, it's very real. You don't realize that it's crap until you have taken the necessary means to overcome and heal from it.
Yeah. You're absolutely right. You can't see it as that, and you can't identify it as that for somebody else, of course. But now coming out the other side, you're like, what crap that was. But, lovingly, it was a necessary part of the process. And here I am. Now it's a new beginning, and let's go.
Exactly.
And I love the idea how you said it, that because it was the same for me, that you can't this need for approval of other people. Because for me, and I think you alluded to the same, you didn't want to rock the boat. You didn't want to disturb. You didn't want to upset anybody. I didn't want anybody to feel in like I was trying to outposition them. There's all these crazy things.
There's so many emotions around.
There you go. Yeah.
There's so many. And I also feel like when I'm talking to her as well, I would also explain to her that you don't need other people's approval to really step into and be who you are. I spent a lot of time and years feeling like if I wasn't getting the approval from other people, that I wasn't qualified or able to do the things that I felt like I could do. But because I wasn't getting the approval that I was seeking, that I wasn't allowed to do it.
Oh, absolutely. The powers that be, i.e. certain people, weren't giving you their permission, their blessing, their okay. They weren't signing off, and you're like, well, I can't until I get a head nod, a call from the bullpen, whatever your reference is. I need somebody out here to say, come on, let's go. You're in. Come on, right. We can do this. They never did that. Never. No. Until I said, guys, I'm in. And you don't have to say it to anybody except yourself, and then go in.
And then just do it.
Literally. And then go in. Just take a step. That's all I did. Just take one step in one arena, in one regard, and that's it. And now you're on your way.
That's what every day as an entrepreneur is like. I think a lot of times we feel like we have to, there's that saying, how do you eat an elephant?
Yeah.
One bite at a time. I think too often we feel like if we can't eat the entire elephant in one sitting, then we're not capable, we're not worthy, we're not able, whatever the case may be. But literally every single day is just using momentum and taking one step towards something. Ultimately, those things are going to work their way out. You're either going to achieve it, or you're going to realize that you need to be rerouted in another direction. Neither is wrong. You just have to be willing to do something.
Todd, attending the live broadcast here, made a great comment. He said, that's so real. The crap feels real, but it's crap. Then again, it's part of our journey to becoming who we are.
Yeah. Without the crap, I hands down would not be who I am today.
Same. Absolute same. I love that. Do you believe that everything happens for a reason?
Every single day, every single time. I think that your entire life is already kind of mapped out, and you're walking on the journey and the story. And things happen for a reason because if it's a negative situation, it's shaping you for something later. If it's a positive situation, it's building you up for something that's coming down the pipeline. Every scenario happens in the right space at the right time to teach you what you need to know.
There you go. Are you spiritual or religious in any ways?
I'm a whole lot of things. Absolutely. Yeah, I have my own kind of like, I don't feel like I belong in any particular named box, so to speak. But I'm very intuitive. God and I talk in the car. I'm also a huge component of, nature and earth and, the spirits that are around us. I kind of have my own quirky take on that stuff, but it works for me.
Opposed to everybody else's non-quirky take on it, right?
Well, you know what I mean.
But I know what you mean, and you know what I mean, right? It's perfect.
Yeah. It's a weird little mix of a lot of different things, and it works well for me, and it allows me to kind of tune into something bigger than me sometimes.
Imagine that you're doing what you feel works for you.
Crazy concept.
I know. What do you believe happens when it's all over? When our time here on Earth comes to an end?
What do I believe happens? With me? Or...
Yes, with you. When it's all over for you.
That's a deep question.
Why not?
I feel like what happens to everyone is different, probably. I think it depends a lot on. I don't really know. No one's ever really asked me this before.
You've never thought about what happens?
I have, yeah. So if I just kind of break it down, I feel like our souls are sent to where we are needed. So, or where we're being called to. So I'm into some pretty woo-woo shit. That's
what we're here for.
Yeah. So like my great grandmother, for instance, is one of my spirit healers, and she's often with me as one of my guides. So I feel like her soul was called to guide me. So I feel like when my time is up, my spirit and my soul will be called to wherever I am needed, if needed.
Lovely. I will leave you with this final question. Laura Wallace, how would you like to be remembered?
So when I am, I told my husband the other day, I said, you know what, when I die, I want you to make me a tree. A tree. Like, I don't want classic burial and all that kind of stuff. Like, I would rather be put back into where I came from. When I die, I want people to be like, that woman inspired the hell out of me. And if I can leave that lasting impression with people that I cross paths with, and they smile when they think of me, and they feel like, you know what, she inspired me to do something that I didn't feel like I could do, then my time on earth was well spent.
Well, you're certainly inspiring this gentleman right here. Seriously, many chills, many takeaways, and a whole heap of inspiration. Thank you, Laura, for joining us and for opening up and sharing your wisdom with us today. Awesome to have you on.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun. Really enjoyed it.
I'm glad to hear that. And I hope everybody tuning in to the live broadcast also really enjoyed it. If you're tuning in to the replay and you're consuming this on your favorite podcast platform, be it iTunes or Apple Podcasts or Google or Spotify, go over and leave us a little rate and review. Honestly, I love reading them. I love knowing what you thought. And keep in touch with us. Keep in touch with Laura Wallace. And we're going to do it again. Thanks so much for tuning in. And as always, go get them. All right. We are off the air, but still live on Facebook. To wrap up, how do you feel?
I love this stuff, right? I get real geeked out about talking about this kind of stuff. So now I feel a whole lot more inspired myself to get back into the things that I need to do.
So being here, talking like this inspires you to like, you mean like now throughout your day, work and do good stuff?
Yeah, I feel like I'm like 10 levels above where we started, an hour or so ago. So I feel pretty pumped. And I like I said,
Wow.
I feed off of energy. So like-minded conversations and relatabilities. And, I'm excited that I had another opportunity to share what makes me who I am and the passions that I have with other people. The more I can do that, the better. So thank you for having me.
Oh my goodness. Thank you. Love hearing that. Really cool. All right. And again, thank you everybody for joining us. We're going to do this again and again. You know that. Comment away and we'll respond. Thank you, Laura. I'll talk to you soon.
Thank you.